The grand space station of Valora Prime floated like a shining jewel against the endless black of space. Thousands of lights blinked across its surface, and ships of every size glided in and out of its docking bays. Traders, explorers, soldiers, and ambassadors from dozens of alien civilizations passed through its massive halls each day. To many, Valora Prime was a symbol of unity. To others, it was a stage where the strongest empires displayed their pride. And today, in one of its crowded assembly halls, laughter filled the air. At the center of the crowd stood Daniel Carter, a human explorer with a backpack slung across his shoulder. His clothes were plain, worn from travel, and his boots still carried the dust of some distant planet. He stood tall, though not imposing, at least not compared to the towering forms of many aliens around him. Before him loomed Ra-Tor, a scaled warrior from the Drekkath Empire. His green skin shimmered under the lights, and his golden armor clinked as he moved. Ra-Tor's deep voice carried across the chamber, every word coated with amusement. "So, little human," Ra-Tor said with a wide grin, "you claim your kind will soon discover wonders that even we cannot? You believe Earth's jungles hide secrets greater than the treasures of our empires?" The crowd of aliens erupted in laughter. Daniel's face flushed, but he did not back away. "I'm not saying I know for sure," he replied calmly. "But humans are explorers. We've always found meaning in places others ignored. There are parts of our worlds, even our old colonies, that were abandoned before we understood them. Who knows what sleeps there?" A tall, bird-like alien named Kalor, feathers gleaming like polished silver, tilted his head mockingly. "Humans speak of curiosity, but curiosity is not strength. What will you do if you find only roots and dirt? Will you write poems about it? Will you tell the stars that humanity should be honored for chasing shadows?" More laughter rang out. Some clapped their claws together. Others clicked mandibles or whistled in mocking tones. To them, the human's determination was amusing, not inspiring. Daniel clenched his jaw. He remembered this scene too well. Ever since he had left Earth to travel among the stars, aliens looked at him with the same expression, mild curiosity followed by condescending smiles. To them, humans were young, untested, fragile, a species barely out of their cradle, stumbling into a galaxy already shaped by ancient empires. But Daniel had not come to Valora Prime to be accepted. He had come to declare his purpose. "I don't expect you to believe me," he said firmly, raising his voice above the laughter. "But I know this. There are forgotten places in our colonies where no one dares to go. In one of those places there is something waiting. And when I find it, you will see humanity is not as small as you think." The chamber grew quiet for a moment. The confidence in his voice surprised even himself. Then Ra-Tor roared with laughter, his scaled shoulders shaking. "Hear him! The human believes he will find glory in abandoned dirt worlds. How many explorers have said the same? How many bones now lie in jungles and deserts swallowed by time?" Kalor flapped his wings and joined in. Yes. The human will return with nothing but bug bites and scratches. If he returns at all." The laughter started again, louder this time. Daniel stood still, his fists clenched, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. He wanted to shout at them to tell them they were wrong, but instead he let the moment pass. He had already spoken his truth. He didn't need their approval. From the back of the hall, a smaller alien watched silently. She was Lyra, a scholar from the gentle race of Valari. Her people were known for their wisdom, not their strength. Unlike the others, she did not laugh. Instead, she studied Daniel's face and saw something unusual. Stubbornness, but also hope. When the crowd dispersed, leaving Daniel to stand alone, Lyra approached him. "You know they won't believe you," she said softly, her voice carrying a melodic tone. Daniel looked at her, his expression weary but steady. "I don't need them to believe. I just need to prove it. And what if there is nothing?" Lyra asked gently. "Then at least I'll know I tried," Daniel replied. His eyes burned with determination. "Humans have always walked into the unknown. It's what we do. If we only followed where others already went, we would still be on Earth staring at the sky wondering what's out here. No, we move forward even when no one thinks we can." Lyra tilted her head, thoughtful. "You speak like a dreamer. And dreamers often meet hard ends," Daniel smiled faintly. "Or they change the world." That night, Daniel prepared for his departure. His small ship, the Endeavor, rested quietly in a less crowded hangar bay. It was not impressive compared to the massive warships and luxury cruisers of other species. but it was sturdy and reliable. As he loaded supplies, maps, scanners, rations, he thought of Earth's jungles. Not just Earth itself, but also the colonies humans had once started and later abandoned. Places where dense forest grew wild, swallowing everything. Dangerous, yes, but also places where time kept secrets hidden. He remembered the words of his grandfather, a historian who had once studied myths of ancient builders. Civilizations rise and fall, Daniel. Sometimes what they leave behind waits for the right eyes to see it, sometimes the right hands to awaken it. Those words stayed with him now like a quiet fire in his chest. Before departure, Daniel walked once more through the busy station corridors. Aliens glanced at him with smirks, whispering to each other. He ignored them. At one corner, Rator and Kalor stood together watching him. "Going to chase your ghosts, human?" Rator called, his voice dripping with amusement. Daniel paused only for a moment. "Yes," he said simply. "And when I return, you'll remember this day." He turned and walked on without waiting for a reply. Lyra, who had been observing from a distance, whispered to herself, "Perhaps he truly will." The Endeavor left Valora Prime soon after, slipping into the deep silence of space. The station's lights faded into the distance as stars stretched before him. Alone in the cockpit, Daniel exhaled slowly. "Let them laugh," he murmured. "We'll see who's laughing when the truth comes out." With a steady hand, he set his course for an abandoned jungle world recorded in old human maps. A world forgotten by most, dismissed by all. But not by him, because Daniel Carter believed in something greater than mockery. He believed humanity had a destiny yet to be revealed. And soon, in the depths of a jungle, the first step of that destiny would awaken. The small ship Endeavor glided through the dark sea of stars, carrying Daniel Carter to a world that most had forgotten. He sat at the controls, eyes fixed on the glowing display before him. The navigation screen showed a single planet, isolated in its orbit around a quiet yellow sun. Its name flickered faintly. Calros 7. Long ago, humans had tried to settle Calros 7. Records described it as fertile and rich in resources, but it was also dangerous. The jungles grew endlessly, swallowing farms and towns in weeks. The creatures were fierce and unafraid of humans. Colonists abandoned the world after many failed attempts, and the planet was left to silence. Daniel studied the files one more time. He had memorized them, but still he read carefully. Maps showed where early settlements once stood, now most likely covered in vines and roots. Reports spoke of strange signals picked up in the early days but never explained. That detail made Daniel's heart beat faster. He whispered to himself, "If there's a place where secrets hide, this is it." The Endeavor shuddered as it broke through the planet's atmosphere. Below him stretched an ocean of green, a jungle so vast that no horizon could contain it. Clouds of mist rolled above the canopy, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Lightning flashed, illuminating the twisting rivers that cut through the wilderness. Daniel guided the ship carefully, searching for a clear patch. After some time, he spotted a small plateau high above the trees. The landing thrusters roared, shaking the vines and scaring flocks of bright-winged birds into the sky. The ship settled down with a hiss of steam. He strapped on his pack, checked his tools, and stepped out into the wild. The air hit him instantly, thick, hot and heavy with the scent of soil and strange flowers. The sounds of the jungle rose all around. Insects clicking, distant animal calls, and the rustling of leaves as hidden creatures moved through the shadows. Daniel smiled faintly. "Beautiful and deadly," he muttered. He activated his scanner, a small device strapped to his wrist. The screen flickered, showing signals from the ground. Most were normal. Heat from animals, traces of water, mineral readings. But one caught his attention. A faint, repeating pulse deep below. "Not natural," he said quietly. Adjusting his pack, he pushed into the jungle. Hours passed as he hacked his way through vines and roots. The trees were taller than any on Earth, their trunks wide as towers. Their leaves broad enough to cover a house. Some plants glowed faintly in the dim light, casting eerie colors across his path. Strange insects buzzed around him, wings shimmering like crystal. Yet danger was everywhere. Once a serpent longer than his body slid across the path, scales glinting, its eyes watching him before vanishing into the undergrowth. Another time, a pack of four-legged beasts with tusks circled him, their growls low and threatening. Daniel kept calm, slowly backing away, and they finally melted into the shadows. It was exhausting, but his determination never weakened. The pulse signal grew stronger. Finally, he reached a clearing. At the center stood the ruins of a human colony. Rusted frames of buildings lay half buried under vines. Metal beams bent and twisted. Doors crushed by the weight of centuries of growth. A tower once used as a signal relay now leaned to one side, its surface carved with claw marks. Daniel walked among the ruins, touching the walls. "So much lost," he whispered. "But maybe not everything." His scanner beeped sharply. The pulse came from below, far deeper than the ruined colony. He knelt on the ground, brushing away layers of roots and soil until his fingers touched something solid, cold, smooth, and metallic. Not human metal, something older. His heart raced. He pressed his palm against it. For a moment, the ground trembled faintly. The pulse grew louder. Daniel sat back, staring at the hidden structure beneath him. He had found something buried under centuries of jungle growth, something untouched. The next days were filled with work. He set up camp near the ruins, using solar panels to power his tools. Each morning he returned to the site, cutting roots and digging deeper. Slowly, more of the strange metal surface revealed itself. It was not random debris. The surface curved smoothly, forming part of a massive structure. Lines and markings were etched into it, glowing faintly when touched. Daniel could not read the symbols, but he felt a strange pull toward them, as if they wanted him to understand. One night, as he sat by his campfire, the jungle alive with distant howls, he studied the markings on his datapad. He traced the lines over and over. They seemed less like a language and more like patterns, keys waiting to unlock something. He whispered, "What are you hiding?" On the 5th day, he found an entrance. Beneath layers of stone and roots, a triangular opening revealed itself. It was large, big enough for a person to walk through, though blocked by rubble. With effort, Daniel cleared it. The darkness inside seemed endless. He stood before it, flashlight in hand, heart pounding. "This is it," he said softly. "This is what they said didn't exist." He stepped inside. The air was cool, untouched for centuries. His footsteps echoed on metal floors. The walls glimmered faintly with strange lights responding to his presence. As he moved deeper, he realized he was inside not just a structure, but something far greater. The passage widened into a chamber. Rows of consoles lined the walls, their screens cracked but still glowing faintly. Chairs of unknown design sat before them, untouched since the day this place was abandoned. At the center of the chamber stood a massive core pulsing with energy. Daniel's breath caught. "This isn't a ruin," he whispered. "It's a ship." He touched the core. At once, lights blazed across the chamber. The ground trembled, and the hum of long silent engines echoed through the walls. A deep voice, mechanical yet alive, filled the room. "Identity. Recognized. Awaiting command." Daniel froze, stunned. The ship had spoken. Outside, the jungle stirred uneasily. Birds screamed into the night sky. Beasts slunk back into the shadows. The earth itself seemed to shiver as ancient power awakened beneath the roots. Inside, Daniel stood with wide eyes, his hand still on the glowing core. The aliens who laughed at him would never believe this moment. But soon, they would see. Because in the heart of the jungle, Daniel Carter had found an ancient warship, and it had chosen to wake for him. The chamber shook as if the jungle itself had come alive. Dust fell from the ceiling. Vines that had crept into the walls shivered and pulled back as lights rippled along the metal surfaces. The pulsing core glowed brighter beneath Daniel's hand, responding to his touch like a heart beating faster after a long sleep. Daniel's throat was dry. He whispered, almost afraid to hear his own voice echo in the chamber. "You're alive," the mechanical voice returned, deep and steady. "Systems awakening. Power at 20%. Identity confirmed. Awaiting command." Daniel's pulse raced. "I'm no commander," he said aloud, though he doubted the ship could care. "I'm just human." The voice paused as if considering. Then it spoke again. "Human. Recognized." The words made him freeze. How could this ship, buried for centuries, maybe millennia, know about humans? He pulled back his hand. The lights dimmed slightly but did not vanish. The ship seemed to breathe, metal walls humming with slow energy. Daniel circled the chamber, brushing his fingers across the consoles. They flickered with life, showing patterns, star maps, symbols he could not read. At one console, a screen changed, glowing with lines that formed a galaxy. Points of light flickered across it like scattered stars, then faded one by one until only a few remained. A warning tone sounded deep and mournful. Daniel felt a chill crawl down his spine. A war, he guessed softly. You were made for war. He stared at the massive core, its glow painting the chamber in pale blue light. The ship was ancient but not dead. Somehow, against all odds, it had waited, and when he touched it, it had chosen to wake. The next days blurred together in a rhythm of discovery. Daniel spent hours inside the buried warship, walking its silent halls, tracing his steps through vast corridors. Some rooms still held signs of the crew who once lived here. Bunks made of strange metal frames, storage rooms filled with containers whose labels he could not read, and mess halls that echoed with a silence heavier than words. In one chamber, he found rows of strange suits, armor perhaps made for beings taller than him. Their shapes suggested warriors, but their surfaces were cracked and dark, as if the life inside them had been swallowed by time. Daniel whispered as he looked at them. What happened to you? Everywhere he went, the ship seemed to respond. Doors slid open at his approach. Lights flickered awake when he entered. Consoles glowed when he brushed his hands over them, and always the voice followed him. Human. Access granted. Human. System adapting. Human. Awaiting directive. At first, Daniel felt uneasy, like a child in a room too large, but slowly his fear turned to wonder. This ship had been built long before his time, and yet it responded to him as if it had been waiting. Each night when he returned to his camp, the jungle seemed restless. Creatures howled and flocks of birds scattered as if sensing the great machine below. The earth trembled faintly as engines deep inside the ship stirred. Daniel sat by his campfire staring at the glowing entrance he had uncovered. The flames crackled and he whispered to himself, "They laughed at me. But this is real. They'll see." On the 7th day, Daniel discovered the bridge. It was vast, a chamber that stretched higher than any building he had ever entered. Rows of consoles curved around a massive viewing window, though the jungle roots blocked most of the outside light. The captain's chair stood at the center, high-backed and imposing, facing the stars that were no longer visible. As Daniel stepped closer, the voice filled the room. "Command bridge online. Awaiting captain." Daniel placed his hand on the chair's armrest. At once, the entire bridge flared with light. Screens lit up with maps, data streams, and strange symbols. The floor beneath him vibrated as power surged through the ship. He sat down slowly, his fingers curling around the cold armrests. The voice spoke again. Captain confirmed. "Human command recognized." Daniel froze. "Captain? No. I'm not your captain." But the ship ignored his protest. The star map appeared once more on the central display. This time Daniel could see it clearly. It showed fleets moving across the galaxy, symbols marking battles fought long ago. Slowly the map faded until only a single glowing star remained. Earth's sun. Daniel's chest tightened. You were connected to us, weren't you?" The voice answered. "Humanity. Descendants, alliance lost. Awaiting return," his mind spun. Humanity was younger than most galactic empires. How could this ancient ship know about them unless humans were tied to something greater, something forgotten? The next morning, Daniel activated one of the consoles. To his surprise, the interface slowly changed, the symbols shifting into English letters. He blinked in shock. "You're adapting to me?" The screen displayed simple words. Yes, for human command. Piece by piece, the ship revealed its secrets. It was a warship built for an alliance of species long gone. It had fought in great battles against enemies whose names were now lost to time. When the alliance collapsed, the ship was hidden, buried on Calros 7 to wait for allies who would never return. And now, somehow it had chosen him, but not everything was peaceful. One evening, as Daniel worked in the bridge, an alarm blared. The ship's sensors had detected movement outside. Daniel hurried to a console, watching as an image formed on the screen. Shapes moved in the jungle, large predators circling his camp. The ship's voice rumbled. "Threat detected. Defensive systems offline. Recommend evacuation." Daniel grabbed his flashlight and hurried outside. His campfire was nearly out and shadows moved among the trees. He caught glimpses of glowing eyes, sharp teeth, and massive claws. He froze, his heart pounding. Not good, the beasts growled, stepping closer. Daniel backed toward the ship's entrance, but the creatures lunged. Suddenly the ground shook. Panels along the buried hull glowed, and a surge of light burst outward. A low hum filled the jungle, vibrating through the trees. The beasts stopped, growling in confusion, then slowly backed away. One by one, they melted into the darkness, leaving Daniel trembling at the entrance. The ship's voice spoke calmly. Defenses minimal. Intruders repelled. Daniel laughed shakily, relief flooding through him. You saved me. He realized then how alive the ship truly was. It was more than metal and power. It was a guardian, one that had chosen to protect him. Days passed. The warship grew stronger as systems rebooted. Power levels rose from 20% to 40%. Engines deep within the ground began to hum louder, shaking the jungle above. Daniel stood often on the bridge, staring at the displays. He was no longer a lone explorer mocked by aliens. Here he was captain of something greater than he had ever dreamed. One night, as the stars glimmered faintly through cracks in the jungle canopy, Daniel spoke softly to himself. They'll see soon. Humanity isn't weak. We're not small. We're part of something bigger. And this ship proves it, the warship's voice answered, steady and calm. Humanity rises. Daniel smiled. For the first time, he believed it fully. But he also knew the truth. Once word spread about this discovery, others would come. And not all would come as friends. The laughter of aliens was behind him now. The storm of their fear and envy lay ahead, and the warship, ancient and powerful, was ready to awaken for war. The jungle world of Calro 7 was no longer silent. For weeks its trees trembled as deep beneath the ground. The ancient warship stirred. Its engines rumbled like the growl of a buried beast, sending vibrations across rivers and mountains. Birds scattered in great flocks, and creatures of the night kept their distance from the glowing metal hidden below the roots. Daniel Carter stood on the warship's bridge, staring at the holographic display. The systems were nearly at 60% power now. Lights pulsed across the ship's interior, corridors no longer dark but alive with energy. Every day, more of the consoles translated their symbols into English. It was as if the warship was teaching him, step by step preparing him for something larger. But outside, change had already begun. Far above, in the cold reaches of space, a small probe had picked up the warship's awakening signal. Its transmission reached Valora Prime within days. When the alien leaders saw the message, their laughter turned into silence. The humans had not been wrong. A hidden ship had been found. And worse, it was powerful. In Valora Prime's council chamber, the great empires gathered. Rator of the Drakath Empire slammed his scaled fist against the table. His golden armor rattled as he spoke. A warship from the ancients! Do you know what this means? Whoever commands it could control entire sectors. Kalor, the bird-like alien with silver feathers, hissed softly. And it is not in our hands, it is with the human. The others murmured, some in disbelief, some in unease. Only weeks earlier they had laughed at Daniel Carter's bold words. Now, the thought of him commanding an ancient weapon made their pride tremble. Lyra, the Valari scholar, was present as well. Unlike the others, she did not speak with anger. Instead, she looked thoughtful, her large eyes calm. Perhaps the ship chose him for a reason, she said softly. Rator snarled. A reason? He is nothing but a wanderer from a weak species. If the ship has chosen him, it is a mistake. We must go to Calro 7 and take it before humanity believes it has power. Kalor flapped his wings, his voice sharp. Agreed. If we allow this, humans will claim equality among us. Their kind has no history of strength. This discovery could upset the balance of the stars. The council debated fiercely, but in the end, greed and fear outweighed caution. Fleets were ordered to move toward Calro 7. The race for the warship had begun. On Calro 7, Daniel remained unaware of the gathering storm. He was too busy exploring the warship's depths. One morning, he stood before the main viewing screen. The ship's AI, calm, steady, and always addressing him as captain, displayed images of alien fleets moving across the stars. Daniel frowned. They know. They're coming, the voice replied. Confirmed. Vessels approaching. Multiple factions. Estimated arrival. 7 days. Daniel's hands curled into fists. He thought of Rator and Kalor, of their laughter back on Valora Prime. He knew exactly what they wanted. Not discovery, not history, only power. He turned to the glowing core at the heart of the bridge. If they come for this ship, will you let them take it? The AI pulsed with light. Negative. Human command confirmed. Defense protocols locked. Daniel exhaled, relief mixed with fear. He had 7 days to prepare for a storm greater than anything he had imagined. That night, as rain hammered the jungle, Daniel sat by his campfire outside the ship's entrance. He stared into the flames, lost in thought. All his life, humans had been underestimated. In the great markets of Valora Prime, in the halls of alien councils, in the shadows of empires older than Earth's history, humans were the children, the dreamers, the soft and fragile species. And yet, he had found this. A ship older than all of them, waiting for him. Maybe this is what we needed, he whispered. Proof that we belong. The jungle answered with distant howls. But within the buried warship, lights glowed like watchful eyes. When the fleets arrived, the sky of Calros 7 burned with fire. The first ships descended through the clouds, their engines tearing the mist apart. Massive vessels, armed and armored, cast shadows across the jungle. Smaller landing crafts broke away, heading straight for the plateau where Daniel's ship was buried. Daniel stood at the warship's entrance, watching them approach. His heart pounded. This is it, he said softly. The AI's voice rumbled. Multiple factions detected. Warning, hostility probability high. Daniel gripped the edge of the doorway. Then let's show them what humanity can do. The first landing craft touched down. Alien soldiers poured out. Armored in shining plates, weapons humming with power. Rator himself marched at their front, his scaled body towering above the others. His golden armor gleamed even in the jungle's dim light. He raised his voice deep and commanding. Human, Daniel Carter! You will step aside. This warship does not belong to you. It belongs to the strong. Behind him, Kalor's soldiers spread their wings, lining the trees with deadly precision. The two rivals had come together for a single goal, to claim the ship. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady, though his hands trembled. You laughed at me. You said humanity was nothing. But this ship didn't choose you. It chose me. The crowd of aliens hissed and growled in response. Rator pointed his clawed hand. Take him! Soldiers surged forward, only to freeze as the ground shook violently. The buried warship roared to life. Panels along its hull opened, glowing with energy. Massive cannons rose from the earth, their tips humming with power. The AI's voice thundered through the jungle. Unauthorized approach detected. Warning, stand down. The soldiers halted, their eyes wide. The ship's glow painted the jungle in pale blue light. Trees bent from the force of its awakening engines. Daniel raised his voice above the roar. This ship isn't just metal and power. It's a legacy. And it chose humanity. Rator snarled, but his soldiers hesitated. Kalor's wings twitched nervously. Even the proudest warriors felt fear in the shadow of the awakened warship. The AI continued. Human command active. Intruders will not be tolerated. With a deep rumble, the cannons shifted, aiming directly at the gathered armies. Rator clenched his teeth. For the first time, he did not laugh. Kalor hissed quietly. We underestimated them. Lyra, who had arrived quietly among the factions, stepped forward. She looked at Daniel with calm eyes. It seems the jungle whispered truth. The human was right. Daniel met her gaze. He said nothing, but in his chest, pride burned bright. The aliens who had once mocked him now stood in silence, facing the power of a ship that refused to obey anyone but him. That night, the fleets did not attack. They retreated to orbit, unsure of what to do. On the surface, Daniel walked the warship's bridge, his reflection shining in the glowing screens. The laughter of the past was gone. Now he carried something greater than himself. Humanity's image had changed forever, but he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not ignore this. Rival empires would plot, others would fear, and some would try again to take what was his. Daniel Carter stood tall on the warship's bridge, stars gleaming beyond the jungle mist. For the first time in history, aliens looked at a human not as weak, not as small, but as a captain of destiny. And the warship, older than empires, whispered in its deep mechanical voice, humanity rises. The jungle of Calros 7 was calm once more. The storms had passed, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. The awakened warship rested beneath the roots, its engines humming steadily, a low, comforting vibration beneath the earth. Its lights glowed softly, casting long shadows across the trees and vines. Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, gazing at the glowing consoles. The alien fleets had retreated to orbit, unsure of what to do. Their laughter, their mockery, all seemed distant now, like whispers from another life. He walked slowly among the controls, running his fingers over the alien symbols that had slowly adapted into language he could read. Every day the ship revealed more of its secrets, its history, its purpose, its battles. It was as if the warship itself trusted him to understand. Humanity, the ship rumbled. You carry legacy. You are recognized. Daniel exhaled deeply. Legacy. He had never thought of humans in such a way before. To most, they were young, fragile, and easily overlooked. But here, with this ship, he felt something greater. Over the next few days, Daniel explored the warship further. Deep in its engines, he found chambers filled with strange technology, energy cores that hummed with power, databanks containing star maps and records of ancient alliances, and even designs for ships far more advanced than anything humans had built. The ship was more than a weapon. It was a library, a vault of knowledge from a civilization long gone. Daniel realized then that he held in his hands the tools to change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. He walked to the main console and tapped the screen. A projection rose into the air, showing the stars and distant worlds. The AI's voice echoed around him. Command interface active. You may access historical archives. Knowledge reserved for chosen human. Daniel studied the projections. He saw maps of fleets, of empires, of galaxies long forgotten. He saw battle plans, strategies, and the design of incredible machines. His mind raced. We can do this, he whispered. We can reach the stars in ways no one imagined. Not everyone in the galaxy waited quietly. The alien leaders who had once mocked him, Rator, Kalor, and others, remained in orbit, debating their next move. Rator slammed a clawed hand against the command console. We cannot leave it in the hands of a human. This ship could destroy empires. Kalor shook his silver-feathered head. And yet we could not take it. The ship obeys him alone. It recognizes his species, his presence. No force in the galaxy can command it but him. The two rivals stared at the holographic display of Calros 7 below. Daniel's small figure standing atop the plateau looked tiny, almost fragile, but they both felt the weight of power he now carried. Lyra, the Valari scholar, observed quietly. Perhaps, she said softly, the universe has always intended for humanity to rise. This is no accident. The others ignored her words. Fear, however, had already begun to plant its seed. On Calros 7, Daniel began testing the ship's capabilities. He moved through corridors lined with glowing consoles, each activating as he approached. Small drones hummed to life, scanning the jungle, cataloging flora and fauna, even identifying paths through the dense trees. He discovered defensive systems, dormant for centuries. Energy shields could rise above the plateau, cutting off any approach. Turrets could emerge from beneath the soil, aimed precisely at potential threats. And yet Daniel felt no desire for violence. The warship was a guardian, yes, but also a teacher. Its purpose was not simply to fight. It was to protect, to pass knowledge, to guide humanity toward its place among the stars. He leaned against the central console, speaking softly. I will not use you as a weapon of fear. We are explorers, not conquerors. You chose me not to destroy, but to teach, to help humans rise. The ship pulsed in response. Acknowledged. Guidance and protection active. Humanity recognized. As days passed, Daniel realized the full potential of what he had discovered. He could travel to distant stars, to abandoned colonies, to planets untouched by intelligent life. He could learn the history of ancient alliances, study the technology of civilizations long gone, and bring this knowledge back to humanity. The AI guided him patiently, explaining star systems, teaching navigation, and revealing secrets hidden in databanks for thousands of years. Slowly, Daniel pieced together a map of humanity's forgotten legacy. One evening, he stood at the edge of the plateau, looking at the jungle below. Moonlight glimmered on the mist and the rivers that cut through the trees. He could almost hear the whispers of the past, the ancient builders, their fleets, their dreams. They waited for us, he murmured. For someone who could continue their work, and now we can. Word eventually spread across the galaxy. Messages of the human with the awakened warship reached even Valora Prime. Some laughed nervously, still unwilling to accept the truth. Others watched in awe, unable to believe that a single human now commanded a ship older than many civilizations. Hathor, furious but cautious, sent envoys to Calros 7. Their purpose was not to attack but to negotiate, to find some way to bring Daniel under their control. Kalor did the same. Daniel listened to their messages through the warship's communication systems. He could feel their fear, their respect, even their envy, but he did not respond with threats. Instead, he spoke with calm authority. I am not here to fight. I am here to learn, to explore, and to protect. The ship is not a weapon for conquest. It is proof that humanity belongs among the stars. The alien envoys paused. Few had ever heard such words spoken with conviction. Even the proud Rator felt doubt stir in his chest. Daniel's role as a guardian and explorer quickly became clear. He began sending drones to scan uncharted planets. He studied systems where ancient human colonies had failed, learning what went wrong and what could be saved. He mapped resources, life forms, and potential hazards. The ship responded to his every command, teaching him, guiding him, but never disobeying. It was a partnership, unlike anything Daniel had imagined. One day, as he studied a star system far beyond Earth's neighborhood, the AI said, "Human, the galaxy is ready for your people." Knowledge acquired, pathways revealed. Daniel smiled. Then it's time. Time for humanity to step forward. Back on Valora Prime, aliens watched carefully. Some tried to intervene, but every attempt failed. The warship moved with speed and precision, never harming, never attacking, only showing the power of an awakened civilization. The galaxy slowly began to change its view of humanity. No longer were humans the weak species from a small water-covered planet. No longer were they laughed at as dreamers who chased impossible goals. Instead, they were explorers, learners, and now, keepers of a legacy older than many stars. Lyra smiled quietly as she observed from afar. "Perhaps," she whispered, "this is only the beginning." Daniel knew the path ahead would not be easy. There would be rivals, jealous empires, and those who sought the warship's power for themselves. But for the first time, he felt the full weight of possibility. Humanity was no longer a footnote in galactic history. He stood on the bridge, gazing at the stars that stretched endlessly before him. The AI pulsed at his side. "Captain," it said, "humanity's dawn is ready." Daniel nodded, his eyes shining with determination. "Then let's show the galaxy what humans can do." For the first time in history, humanity would rise, not through force or luck, but through courage, knowledge, and the relentless desire to explore. The ship beneath Calros 7 hummed with quiet power, ready to take them anywhere. The stars no longer seemed distant. They were waiting, and Daniel Carter, the human who had once been laughed at, was ready to lead his people into the future.